A reading from Genesis. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse. And in you all your families of the earth shall be blessed." So Abram went to the Lord, and he told him, and Lot went with him.
Hope is a dangerous word. Hope is a dangerous word, and if you don't believe that God is doing something good in this world, if you don't believe that the God who created everything out of nothing can make something out of anything that life throws at you, if you don't believe your life is worth more than a cycle of disillusionment, disappointment, or despair, then maybe this text is not for you today. But if you do believe, if you believe that our future is brighter than our past, if you believe that God never starts a project without a plan to finish it, if you believe hope springs eternal, then maybe, just maybe, God's got a fresh word for us today. Hope is a dangerous word because it requires that we say goodbye to our past, our patterns of thinking, and to imagine fresh, new paths as we join God on a journey other than our own. Only when we say goodbye to old ways can we begin to become a blessing to others. As Thomas Wolfe said, "You can't go home again." And to quote the God of Abram, who called him to leave behind his homeland, who God would later rename our father Abraham, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you, and I will make you a great nation. I will bless you so that your name will be great and so that you will be a blessing." In May of 1965, Bob Dylan was burned out, drugged up, and bored to death, surrounded by a motley crew of groupies, folkies, and hippies. He had traveled the world singing his songs of revolution and resistance and being hailed as the greatest living songwriter. And he was bored. Journalists pelted him with questions like, "What is truth, Bob? And why is there a cat on the cover of your album?" And Bob was disillusioned and disappointed, despairing. Dylan was done. This depressed poet, pressed down by the weight of celebrity, was just done. Done with music, done with being the voice of his generation. So he did what he thought he had to do. He left home. He packed up a satchel and climbed on his motorcycle and drove out of the village in Manhattan to a small cabin in the wilderness around Woodstock. And he was going to write the great American novel and leave music behind and the dust kicked up by his motorcycle. I don't know what Bob Dylan felt in that moment. And I don't know what Abram was feeling when God told him to leave his father's house and his homeland. I wish we had a running monologue of Abram's thoughts here in Genesis 12, but all we get is God says go, and Abram went, as the Lord told him, leaving behind everything that gave him comfort, everything that granted him a sense of identity. So Abram and Sarai leave. Was this divine couple called with the dull ache of boredom like Dylan? Or did their souls stir at the dream of a new journey? Was it fear or excitement filling their minds and hearts? In a study done on Olympic athletes, psychologists discovered that in addition to their physical training, that they go through an experience of mental training where they learn to experience nervousness not as fear, but rather as excitement. Olympians funnel their frenetic energy through this filter of excitement rather than fear so that they see challenges as opportunities. They see potential danger as possible victory. I wish I knew what Abram felt when God told him to leave home. And the more I think about it, I think I do know how he felt. And I bet you do too. Go from your country and your family, your father's house, to the land that I will show you. But hope is a dangerous word. And just like Abram, Bob Dylan, and you and me, we all endure the chaotic liminal space of unknowing. The fog of the future is thick and unforgiving. Faith and doubt dance together in the hearts of every human traversing through the cloud of uncertainty. And our brains are designed to weather these storms. Around age 25, your prefrontal cortex fully develops in our ability to assess risk, troubleshoot problems, and look ahead at the potholes on the road of life increases drastically. This is probably why your car insurance decreases when you turn 25. And another part of your brain, though, is the Anterior Superior Temporal Gyrus, or the AGST, and it serves a different yet similar function. The AGST serves the function of it gives you the ability to discover insight in the cloud of uncertainty. The AGST gives us the ability to make connections and imagine new possibilities out of seemingly random and disconnected bits of data. Neurologists study how the neurons in the AGST start firing seconds before an insight comes. That moment where you know the answer before you know the answer. We call it having something on the tip of your tongue. The problem we face, though, is that the AGST is on the right hemisphere of our brains, so that our left hemisphere, for it to be able to process this insight, we have to slow down and listen. We have to relax. Turn the music down in the living room so that you can hear the noise coming from the attic. Slow down. Enjoy the silence. They say that's why we have our best ideas when we're in the shower. You're relaxed, the warm water, you don't have your cell phone in your hand checking email. There's nothing really to do but stand there, relax, maybe sing a song, and just let the water wash you clean. This is perhaps why Sir Isaac Newton discovered gravity while sitting under a tree quietly. Or why Archimedes revolutionized mathematics while he was in his bathtub. When your prefrontal cortex takes a break from analyzing danger and assessing risk, then the insights discovered by your AGST can finally be heard. And in the quiet, you can imagine new possibilities. Your brain has to take a break before your imagination can run wild. But you have to believe that there's something better out there for you, a better way, a way other than our own. Just be careful, because when you search for such things and you hope for such things, it might just turn your life upside down. Or in the case of the gospel, it might turn us right side up. Change is risky because hope is a dangerous word. So Bob Dylan leaves Manhattan. He leaves behind music. He leaves behind his role as the voice of his generation, the prophet of the 60s, and he goes hoping and searching for something new, something exciting, something life-giving. So Dylan arrives at his cabin in Woodstock. And in the stillness of that picturesque pastoral scene, something peculiar happened. Something came over him, Like the Greeks who believed the muses were gods who inspired the poets and artists of old, Bob Dylan began to compulsively scratch out 20 pages instantly that started like this. Once upon a time you dressed so fine, threw the bums a dime, in your prime, didn't you? You used to laugh about everybody who was hanging out. But now you don't talk so loud, you don't seem so proud about having to scrounge for your next meal. How does it feel? How does it feel to be without a home, like a complete unknown, like a rolling stone? And thus, rock and roll history was made. Bruce Springsteen said that hearing Like a Rolling Stone on AM radio was one of the watershed moments of his entire life. Even the impossible to impress John Lennon was in awe of Dylan's masterpiece. And if Bob Dylan had never quit music and left home, he would have never discovered the glorious road up ahead. Creativity craves quiet. Not just the external quiet of a country cabin like Dylan, but the internal quiet that comes when we dip our souls in the pool of God's peace. Perhaps prayer is not just for the physically ill, but for those of us who are spiritually blind to the future and to which God is calling us. Abram needed to get out of Ur to discover the promised land, because back in Ur, Abram was plenty comfortable, quite content, fairly fulfilled. Perhaps it was his curiosity that got the best of him. And like Luke Skywalker standing on a hill looking at the binary sunset, wondering what adventures waited him in a galaxy far, far away, perhaps God planted a seed of curiosity in Abram so that he begged the question, so is this it? Is this all there is for my life? And God whispered back, no, I have so much in store for you. But Abram, you can't stay here. So Abram and Sarai waved bye to Ur and their families, and they began the long trek to a land they did not know. And for what purpose? To become a blessing. Blessing is a word I believe we need to reclaim. And for a great look at how the word blessing gets ruined, I refer you to my esteemed colleague, Jacob Topper, who preached at 8:30 today, which you can watch online. But the antithesis to blessing is curse. For those of us living in the wake of the European Enlightenment, we don't really put a lot of credence in curses. We moderns don't really think about this a lot. When we get sick, we go to a doctor, not a witch doctor. And when we want to have a baby, we go to a fertility specialist. We don't burn a sacrifice to a fertility goddess. In the modern world, curses can't hurt us any more than blessings can benefit us. We lose something. And yet, there is still something powerful about words. There is still something mysterious and meaningful when bread is broken and words like, "This is my body broken for you," are spoken in this place. Or when somebody looks at you and they truly see you and they say, "I love you." Those words can change you. And in the same way, but on the other side, there is something destructive and devastating about if your boss called you an idiot in front of all your colleagues, or if your spouse calls you stupid in front of your children. Blessings and curses matter. Our words matter. Patty Baker loaned me her copy of Margaret Kiewit's published memoir, Margaret's one of our Wilshire members, but she grew up in the Netherlands, and she recounts the story of when a man came to her house conducting a survey and asked who lived there. And Margaret said, well, there's my mom, my dad, my brother, my 2 sisters, myself, and God. And the man asking the survey said, God lives here? And she said, yes, God lives here, but it's okay. He doesn't take up any space. And so the man looked at her and said, you know something? You are very fortunate. And Margaret went and asked her mom later. She said, what does fortunate mean? And her mom said, it means that you are blessed. Blessings and curses, they're not magic, but they are powerful. God blesses us so that we can bless others. We're not just recipients of God's grace, but we are conduits, sharing God's love and grace and justice into the world. While we are tempted to stay back home in Ur like Abram, where it is nice and safe, God is inviting us into a land of uncharted territory. In the book To Change the World, with the subtitle, The Irony, Tragedy, and Possibility of Christianity in the Late Modern World, it's a great title. Dr. James Hunter, a professor of sociology from the University of Virginia, argues that if the church is to discover her calling anew in this postmodern world, we must learn what it means to be a faithful presence locally in our communities. Being a faithful presence within our world is a challenge to be a blessing. Woven into the American religious identity since the Great Awakenings is this tendency for us to think about our faith as a private, personal practice, and that religion's primary purpose is to help calm our nerves about life after death. But the God of Abram calls us and wants us to know that there is life before death too. There is good news to be shared. There is good work to be done. And there can be resurrection after any number of the crucifixions that we experience in our lives, because hope springs eternal, my friends. But hope is a dangerous word. Hope is a dangerous word because when you let her loose in your soul, she might do some damage. She might pull up the carpet to show where the termites were eating through the boards of your beliefs. She might crash through the sheetrock of your heart, revealing mold and water damage, revealing that this damage that you didn't even know was there. Hope is a dangerous word because if you let her loose in your life, you just might have to move. You might have to pack up everything, load up a U-Haul, pull out your phone and type into your GPS, I have no idea where I'm going, but God as my witness, I believe that my future is as bright as my past, brighter than my past. I believe that God, the God who made everything out of nothing, can make something out of the mess I have made. And I believe that maybe, just maybe, God has something in store for me that will make me a blessing to others. So say goodbye. Say goodbye to the land of your fathers, Abram. Say goodbye to the patterns of thinking that have held you back, that have destroyed your imagination. Say goodbye, because there's a promised land farther up the road that we can call home. Amen.